Welcome to MMO Grinder Sidequest, where I take a look at closed beta and trial subscription games, giving you a quick first impression. Today I'll be looking at Dragon's Prophet, the action 3D fantasy MMO currently in an open beta. While I do say in the opening paragraph of every Sidequest that I usually look at closed beta or trial subscription games, and any game in an open beta does qualify for a full episode, I opted to do an impressions video instead on this one, considering that there's many issues that this game is still working out and that I'll point out in due time. I have to apologize for the watermark of the recording software here, as for some inexplicable reason, both my paid versions of Fraps and DX Story would outright refuse to work with this game, forcing me to use this trial version of the recording software Action by Marillis. It is a phenomenal program that I'll probably end up purchasing as well. Okay, with that digression out of the way, we'll start. Graphics are tough for me to get a handle on. They're good, but not great, I guess. There's a lot of weird issues with them. Clipping, getting stuck in the geometry is all too easy, and there's just a lot of oddity to the designs of the humans. Seriously, there's 5 sliders to adjust a woman's breast size, but I can't make a face that doesn't look overly goofy. This game also forces my PC into Windows Basic mode for some reason, and it doesn't look like the kind of game that would require that to happen. It's odd. Translation seems dodgy in parts as well, and finding a spelling mistake is all too easy for anyone paying half attention to this game. There's still a lot of tweaks that should definitely be done to this game. Dragon design is imaginative as hell, however, and there is way more interesting takes than the standard giant winged lizard that's all too common in fantasy games, including dragons that look outright insectoid or plant-based. It's pretty cool in that regard. Music and sound, however, is pretty forgettable. It's not nearly as unique as the Dragon designs and follows mostly fantasy MMO tropes of being low-key and ambient, playing loosely in areas before stopping, and other times being intensely orchestral and bombastic. You've heard it all before, trust me. Voice acting, while in the game, is pretty low end of the spectrum. Lines are okay and aren't really nonsensical, but they're not read with any real enthusiasm, and half the time the characters on screen don't say what the text does. It's not as bad as most of Terra or Raiders, but it's pretty close. Speaking of Terra and Raiders, this is another action combat game that falls under the reticle combat category, sans reticle. Once the combat centers on a target, it's selected and you can attack it. The lack of a visible reticle or any kind of apparent locking system makes targeting a bit more wonky though, especially when choosing a range class, as you more often than not might end up firing random shots into the distance, often pulling more enemies than you might be hoping to do. In a system similar to another reticle combat game, Neverwinter, the hotkeys are laid out in a logical area, once again giving slots to Q, E, and R, as well as easily reachable number keys. A clever combat twist incorporates a system similar to Vindictus, where clicking left or right in a certain order can use more powerful attacks when unlocked by reaching later levels. For example, a sorcerer can charge up a powerful blast by holding down right-click, or do 3 quick attacks with left-click and finish off with a devastating wide-range strike by pressing right-click at the right time. Of course, Dragon's Prophet's most notable feature is the ability to find, tame, and ride dragons that you locate around the field. Taming a dragon is similar to breaking a bronco in games like Red Dead Redemption, as your character will attempt to leap up onto the dragon and ride it, while that dragon will attempt to buck you off. You can keep it under control by tapping the direction keys to keep it inside of the circle, and if you succeed, the dragon becomes yours to command, both as a rideable mount and as a limited-time combat companion. It's a really interesting system, and I'd love to see the possibilities for greater synergy between the dragons and the player classes. So, while this game is pretty rough around the edges right now, and does look to be a bit on the grindy side when it comes to what seems to be fairly unimaginative quests, there is a lot of potential for fun in the Dragon and Combat system, and I do look forward to seeing what this game has to offer. This has been an MMO Grinder Sidequest, and it's time I logged out.